All right, so we're going to cut our lengths of 0.8 millimeter wires and our length of 0.8 millimeter half round. So just make it nice and neat, take your time. And I then trim off the ends and just make sure that the ends are trimmed off pointing towards the stone, so that will prevent any possible snagging in future when you're wearing the pieces. So next we're going to take this and shape it around the stone. Just take your time with it, and use the stone to help you shape the wire. And then simply press, take the stone out, and then I bend the section at the top, and this is where we're going to bind the wires together, like so. So take another strip of 0.8 millimeter half round and wind a small section around the base. This is to secure it, and wrap the tail around the one side just to anchor it in place, like so. And then just trim off the end. Make sure you maybe put your finger over the wire so it doesn't ping. Alright, so next we're going to separate out the wires at the top, so 2 on each side and then 2 towards the front, which we're going to be using to create the bail. Like so. Next, take the remaining half round wire and wrap it around the front 2 square wires, and just take your time and keep wrapping like so until it's about 2-3 centimeters. The length depends on the size, the length of the bail that you want. So if you want it bigger, you wind more; shorter, you wind less. So flatten it out a little bit to give it more strength. And then I simply bend around the bail. You can use bail making pliers, or you can use your fingers. Bend it down and then bring the 2 tail ends of the wire through the loop of the pear, and wrap the 2 legs, tails, around the bases like I'm showing here, and this will anchor the bail in place. So 1 or 2 wraps is just sufficient. All you need to do is to anchor, so you don't need to go too much. So trim them off. You don't need those anymore. You can use them later if you want to, if you have longer wires, to create accents as well, but in this case we're just cutting them off. So the next step is to set your stone. So what we're going to do now is take our pliers, and we need to determine where we're going to put the bend in. So I'm going to separate out the wires first, so I've got a bit of a space to put my pliers in, like so. Do that on both sides. It's easier when you have some nails. Here you go. So next, take your pair of pliers and quite close to the base, bend the wire in gently, and that will create a little cradle for your stone to sit in, like so. And then place your stone to see if it fits, and we're going to do exactly the same at the front. Like so. So again, separate out your wires. And then just bend the wire over the stone. It will be slightly lifted, as obviously the stone has a dome. So just slide it over, and this is what is going to keep the stone in place. So next we're going to take the central 2 wires and pinch them at the top to keep the stone in place as well. So this acts like a cradle basically. So next we're going to shape the accent wires at the top. So I'm just twirling the 2. So this is pretty much an organic design quite often. You know, go with the flow, see what looks nice. So we are going to take the 2 tails on the side, and I'm going to loop them around and slightly wrap them around the frame once, but don't attach them just yet, like so. And then you can start having a look, see where you want these wires to sit. So we're going to do the same on the other side. So just bend the wires on one side like so, and see what looks nice, like so. We're going to take them through the front to anchor these in place. Take your pair pliers. Sometimes it takes a little bit of fiddling to get the wires in place, but it all it's quite satisfying when it starts sitting in place. So pull the wire through, and it, the trick is not to fight the wire, just go with the flow and it will all fall into place. Just use a pair of pliers to wiggle it and it will tighten up on its own. Put your finger over the accent you've just created so you don't accidentally pull it out of shape as well as you tighten the wire. So next we need to create a little cradle. So I've made a swirl, and this is going to act as a basket for our little gem. So next I'm taking a 5mm gemstone. Now this you can use any type of gemstone obviously, but with certain gauges of wire you need to use certain gemstones. So the 0.8 is perfect for the size. You can go 1mm as well, but I wouldn't recommend going any smaller than this, otherwise it won't be strong enough to hold the shape. So just swirl it around the gemstone and just take your time with this. The more time you spend on it, the neater it will look. And just press it down. And then you can use your pair of pliers to adjust the shape very gently. And next we need to create a little accent with the remaining wire. Sometimes you can create more swirls, like I've done in my vine setting that is somewhere on the channel as well. Or you can just have a single one like in this piece and then use the round nose pliers to curl the ends like that. There you go. Just shape it to your liking. Next, take a piece of 0.4mm wire and I think this is a 6mm bead. You can add anything. This is just an accent, so it doesn't really matter what sort of size of bead you use. You can use gemstones as well. This is just to create interest in the piece, and then obviously secure it with your 0.4mm wire. Just kind of try and place the wire in sections where it's not as visible, and anchor it quite securely so that it doesn't fall out. You can do the same. I tend to use the same wire throughout, weaving wire or even my base wires throughout my pieces. I prefer not to add in, so I just keep the wires that I have. Sometimes it looks like an octopus. Alright, so now we're going to attach the accent wires that we first shaped in the beginning, and I'm going to attach these to the frame on the side. So where you put these again is preference. I've roughly shaped them around the top to give it like a sort of hugging effect to the bead. Right, so now I'm using a needle here to separate the wires out. It can be quite handy if you don't have any nails, so it's much easier to get in between wires like that. And then I'm just shaping the wires here. You can do that at the end as well. I just like to do a little bit as I go along. Next, I'm going to trim off that one wire that was left over. You could use it as well. In this design I didn't really see use for it, so I trimmed it off. Obviously you can do something with it if you like. Next I'm going to reuse the same wire, 0.4 wire, and I'm going through the center to add another accent bead. So I'm going to feed that through to get it in place, ready to add another bead. So this time this is a slightly smaller bead. I think this is a 5mm. Adding it to there. So again, as I said, you can use anything to place. If you don't have any of those copper beads, you can use a gemstone, bead. Micro facets is something that I really like to use in my wire pieces because there's so much sparkle in them. Now obviously secure it. Like so. Then the wire that's left, once again, we're going to reuse that, and I'm going to use it this time to tie the tendril in place. Now this is quite important because when you wear jewelry, quite often, you know, you have it under a jumper or a shawl or something like that, and tendrils like that tend to get caught. So I find it quite important to either tie closed tendrils that have a bead in place to prevent things from hugging, snagging rather than hugging, or tie them down like I'm doing in this case. It's especially important when you have previously created a coil setting or vine settings, because if you snag and the wire gets pulled and the coil gets bent out of shape, obviously the stone will fall out. So I anchor these in place as securely as possible whenever I can when I use it. So 0.4 wire you can use for that, or you can use your half round, which structurally is stronger. Next is trim off the remaining wires and look it once over and see if you finished, and that's it.